Hello, this is Stefan with Warm Inside. Welcome.
Hey. So I'm an avid user of Reddit, and people talking about DIY toys and how to make adult toys and how to make your creation. And a lot of people have a lot of opinions, and I think they're mostly valid. One that I'm kind of a little bit stuck on is the idea of Blender is a hard tool to use. I 100% agree that it's a true statement. I also 100% disagree that that is a true statement for most DIY toy creators. And the big thing is the new features in Blender since 2.9 and especially coming out in 3.0 have been tuned that make this really good. So what I have here is a default install of Blender, except for one thing. I've added the screencast keys. So in the bottom left hand side you will be able to see what I'm typing. I am not a Blender expert. I am sure there are better ways to do this. If you have a better way, hey, leave it in the comments. Let people learn from your experience. I'm just showing you what's worked for me, and if you don't find it valuable, then go watch something else and enjoy your time, man. I'm trying to help people who don't even have this level of knowledge. I play with Blender, I play with these toys, I use them to generate things that I sell, and so they work for me. If something else works for you, great. Alright, first thing, you can go into default modeling, and this is what Blender looks like, but I know exactly that I'm only going to sculpt. So I go to the simplified setup, it removes a bunch of tabs up here. They're still available here if you need, right? But I just don't want the complexity. So you start off with initially with a big ball, and the first thing I'm going to do, because I'm going to get my basic shape, is enable symmetry in X, Y, and Z. I go to the X positive, shortcut number 3 if you're using a keypad. So you can use your keypad to move around like that, and the nice thing is it'll tell you 1, 3. Ooh, what's going on here? Screencast is not working. Let's make sure that's enabled. Let's try that again. There you go. Bottom left hand corner, you should see what keys I'm pressing. So again, we'll go back to 3. I've enabled symmetry in X, Y, and Z. I'm going to take the elastic deform. I'm going to crank the radius up. I can right click, crank the radius up, take the strength up, or you can go up here, if you want to edit and everything like that. Again, people will tell you, oh, you should delete the camera, you should delete the light. You can do whatever you want. I'm just showing you what I do and what works for me. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get a basic phallic shape, for lack of a better term. I just hold the right click button, as you can see down here, you'll watch, and I'm just dragging that out, kind of getting a shape. Once I have a shape that I kind of like, right, we can look at this. This is what we've got. Go back to 3. I'm going to turn off the Z, and that's probably the last time I'll use it. Then I'm going to start adding some volume for my base. So inflate is a good brush for that. We don't probably need that big of a brush. I do want to add quite a bit of inflation right now. And actually I'm going to turn off the Y, because you know what, we can enable Y for right now, and once we get more into an actual final design, we can turn those off and do something that's different. So again, here I am just adding volume. This is one way to add volume along the base, kind of getting a heavy, thick base. I like thick bases because I find them useful. I always oversize my bases because I work them, and in the slicer I actually flatten them, so I don't worry about flattening the design here. There's probably a way to do it really cleanly if you want to spend the extra time in doing blending. I am a big user of the smooth tool. I will make changes. Ooh, too strong. Control Z is your friend, or Command Z on a Mac. I'm on a Mac, so Your key strokes may be slightly different with the command and stuff like that, but I think overall you'll be good. Okay, starting to get some there. I'm going to remesh it with a little bit finer detail. 20 remesh. Okay, cool. And now you can see I'm getting a little bit smoother because I've meshed into a smaller triangles, I think. It's my understanding. I may be wrong, but it seems to work for me. Okay. I really got a bad lump in there that I don't like. Let's see. Just gonna scrape. Ooh, ouch. Control Z. Let's see. Add a little more inflation. Now I'm doing an X and Y. Still inflating. Right, adding volume. I don't worry about going too big. It's really easy to cut it down. I always wind up with a smaller base than I would like at the end. So I am not concerned at all about getting too much. Again, I will work on it a lot. I will get it cleaned up, and I will continually be adapting it. Screencast, can I make that any bigger? Left, right, offset, repeat. I don't see, I can make the font bigger, but I don't see a way to make the overall look bigger. So, okay, so now we have an object pointing up. We've got a base. What do we do next? Let's turn off Y. Let's see. I want Y. Yeah. So I've decided that this is going to be my front here on the X side. So what I'm looking at is these red dots here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add some male anatomy here. And those two dots being identical inside, or being left and right, is what I need, because I don't want them obviously on opposite sides totally. I want them to be on one side of the sculpt, like front versus back. Whereas if I had done it with X, you can see that one would be on the back front, or they'd be on the, sorry, just X, not X and Y. I would be doing it one on the left side, one on the front, one on the back. In my mind, it's concept. So continuing with Y symmetry, adding volume, getting a kind of feel as to what I want to do. Bring that back in there a little bit. Remember, these are expensive when you when you're casting and molding, so big, massive huevos might look great in your mind, but they're going to cost you in mold, silicone, and usability. If you come too high up here, they affect the usability of the insertion length of your toy. Okay, so now we got some good stuff there. Come back, X, Y, grab this, and again, it's a constant, just adapting what you want. Okay, cool. Let's pull this. Just want the Y. Try and pull these forward a little bit. Yep, there you go. Awesome. Nice, nice. Okay, we got a little bit of a weird shape here going on. Not a big deal. And by weird, I only mean not what I'm looking for. I want a little bit more of a rounded shape than a flat shape, so I'm going to add some volume here. Again, this is not like if your toy, you want it to be not round, that's perfectly fine. What is going on? Let's see. Not, oh shoot, I see what's going on. Maybe. Let's try this. Nope, that's not going to do what I want either. So I had it right the first time. Okay, maybe we just need to add some volume this way. Some clay strips coming in there. Yeah, there we go. Cool. A little bit more round on the design that I like. Awesome, awesome. I am a big fan of smoothing often, smooth early, save yourself time. We do a lot, I do a lot of smoothing. I shouldn't say we, because you're going to do whatever you want. I do a heck of a lot of smoothing. And don't make sure your brush, so I'll show you something here. If you smooth like this with too big of a brush, you can actually change the details outside the area you want. So what I do is I try and keep the brush, or the tool I should say, down to a reasonable size, and then I've got what I want. If you notice, I'm not doing a lot of, I just noticed I don't worry about measurements for these kind of designs. If you're a measurement person, there are lots of tools in here. I think that's a little more advanced. I'm thinking of along the lines of how a sculptor would work in my mind, right? How I would create something as a sculptor. Doesn't mean that's how you would create it, doesn't mean it's what works for everybody. It just means that is the way that I tend to do it. I think I got a little bit thicker than I wanted, so I'm going to try and take a little bit off here. I'm just going around, doing it all the way around. Looking at it from, okay, cool. Awesome. I think I like that shape a little bit, or a lot. I know that I like that shape. Getting some weirdness in here. I mean, I can see the. So let me try something here. Yeah, now I can get a little more smoothness. It looks like so cool. Remesh that and get my mesh in a healthy state. Kind of looking in there, making sure I don't have any holes, getting my cool, awesome. Obviously this is going to be a pretty thick design relatively to the base, at this point it is. I mean, I can always change that. It's nothing set in stone at any point. Okay, then I'm going to come along here. Go back to my 3. Tilt it a little bit because I want to be able to see there. I am going to add kind of a bit of a urethral bump here. Coming in. Ooh, that did not go. Sorry, I'm playing around here. I'm trying to see the best way to do this. I keep getting I think it's how my hand's moving. I'm using a mouse, obviously, but I think I hit a point in the movement. There you go, that's better. Awesome. I'm going to retrace that, give it a little more thickness. And I'm not worried about over-thicking here, but I don't like how far down I went there. And the reason is that if this comes out too much, and I'm not really worried about it, is because I am going to smooth it. And when I smooth it, I will lose volume. So cool. We got that. Again, come back. Use a little bit large radius so I can come in here and just kind of smooth this out. Might have went a little bit high on the volume, but again, I can smooth that out. We can fix it. And the biggest problem with going high in the volume here is it doesn't look like what I'm going for. Right? I'm going to avoid the word natural because, as you can see, we're doing something that's completely not natural. Ooh, heavy. Sorry, too much strength. And I think my radius is still too large. The idea of natural in fantasy toys is kind of a weird statement, so I'm going to just say that it didn't achieve what I was looking for. A little bit more strength, so I'm adding a little bit more clay, or a little bit more material, because it's not really clay. Cool. Okay. Again, I'm going to smooth this out often. I'm going to make it do what I want to do, reworking it into my design and how I think I want it to look. And this will look very, very different by the time I get done. So it's just a progressive, incremental changes, doing small little bit. I actually am going to come in here and add some volume. We're going to fix that. How? There we go. Smooth it out. I do worry about these little creases right here, so I pay a lot of attention to those. Again, like, not that they're a problem as much as they're not what I want in my design. So I'm going to make sure that I get rid of that. Clean that out. Okay, cool. Awesome. One of the things I've been playing a lot with. Oh, what the heck? Thought I had it filled out. Sometimes I see it, sometimes I don't. I think it's a smoothing, it might be bringing it back in. Okay, there we go. One of the things I've been playing a lot with lately is flared heads. So let's go here. Zoom this out. I find that for me, it's easy to build a flared head. That might be too large, actually. Let's scale that down. I was actually going for a flared head, but that's interesting. I'm almost looking like I'm going for an uncut look here, but we'll get there. And I'm just building up material. Building up the look that I want. Looking for areas that I think could add a little more. Okay. Good. I like where I'm going here. Feels good to me. Again, using just the right hand key. One of the things that I find I use a lot is, as I design this, I will find that the scale to me is a little not where I want to be. And by scale, I mean length to volume. And so I will come along and just grab this and elongate it. And you can kind of really change the design, right? You know, obviously it means I got to come in here, fix the base a little bit. So I'll come down in here and bring that back in, bring it forward a little bit, bring these out a little, coming. More. Right, cool. Let's see, turn off the X, come back in here with more of this elastic deform. Pull the material down a little bit in here, kind of exposing more of that head. Yep. Pull this material there. Pull it there. Just kind of go around, building that flare, right? Obviously keeping a little bit of consciousness of how big I'm flaring out. I use a lot of smooth, as I said, in the beginning, because I'm getting my shape and figuring out where things are going to sit and what I like, and the design, how it goes. Again, remember what I said, that these are dollars. So adding this base volume here, I have to keep that in mind. Like, oh, I'd really like huge, really massive scaled huevos, but you know, nothing wrong with the spending the dollars, but I have to determine, because I sell my design or sell my objects, I'm not just doing it for personal use. Am I getting bang for the buck on that, right? Adding volume is fine, adding cost is fine, but am I going to get into a position where it's so scaled off and I'm paying so much money for it, the additional volume, that nobody really wants to pay for it, right? And if you're just doing this as a hobby, or you're really focusing on super high-end toys and your market is willing to pay for it, hey, add all the volume that your customers want, right? Not that I focus on low-end toys, but I just don't typically focus on high-dollar stuff, and I don't go really big. So this design looks probably fairly big. I probably wouldn't. We'll see. I don't. It's not something I would necessarily make. Depends on how it is. I just find really big toys are really expensive to both prototype and to produce and to sell. And I have not yet built up a market for those. I sell some higher priced items, and I'm going to tell you, dollar for dollar, I make far better. That did not work there. I make far better revenue or profit margins on the smaller items. That being said, you know, you only have to sell two of the larger items, two of the larger items to equal probably five of the smaller items. So it's a time thing, and I do a lot of pre-mades, so I make them before they're sold, in which case I have to sit on a lot of money and inventory as far as cost go. And so I just tend to avoid really large toys sitting in inventory. If you're doing all customs, that's not as big a deal. Cool. Again, I'm just tuning up here, getting the basic kind of shape. Let's file. Save early, save often. So we'll save this like. I version mine because I'll hit points that I like and I want to just kind of save it. So the War Master -V1 kind of stuff. Again, I'm just picking a random name. Saved it. Cool. Looking good. Looking good. Add a little more volume to this base. You obviously, depending on the design and choice of what you're going to, how you think your toys will be used, you want to consider things like, is it going to be used in a design that it needs to hold itself down, right? Is it going to be used in a design that weight matters? Is it going to be designed in a way that you need to, or be used in a design in a way that you need to accommodate suction cups, right? If that's part of your ultimate goal, it can affect, I mean, I would highly suggest that you use it to affect your design choices, because a base with more volume is easier to add a suction cup. Ooh, look at that, nasty. Hate that stuff. We'll get rid of it eventually, but I think a fill is the way to do it, but I don't know for sure. And again, if somebody watches this and is like, hey, you're doing that all wrong, I would love to hear a better way, because if you can save me time, we both win. Well, at least I think that way. And again, at this point, I'm still mirrored, so I'm making these changes on both sides. So anything I cleaned up should be cleaned up on the other side also. Brings them back a little bit. It's actually bringing them back. Oh, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Inflate, allow it to get removed. Not really, huh? Just kind of brings it out. Ooh, look at that. That's nasty. Control Z to get rid of that. Just not really sure. Not really sure here. If I've just kind of screwed up the mesh and I need to figure it out. But we will get it. I'm spending a lot of time working on stuff that really probably doesn't matter right now. I'm going to scrape that away. I don't know exactly how the remesh works, but what I can tell you is sometimes I get into a spot like this where you could see large mesh, and when I remesh it and come back and try and smooth over it, it helps a lot. So, yep, there you go. So that just kind of made that go away, and now it's not a problem. So I can actually probably scrape that down. Scraping it away? No? That's scrape, right? Yeah, scrape. Flatten. Fill. No, that's the one I want. Scrape. Let's remove material. Decimate that. And this is all, again, all just backing out screw ups that I did, so I created extra work for myself. But that's okay. We'll just fix it, and I mean, that's one of the nice things. There's, you know, and actually, that actually didn't turn out too bad now that I look at it. Just kind of think about what the overall design is and how it's looking. I am not overly disappointed about that. Awesome. And sometimes that happens. You're like, oh, I'm working on it, trying to fix it, and you get to a point and you're like, hey, you know, that actually doesn't look too bad. And one thing I can tell you is I'm going to cut this in the slicer, probably right about this level, if you can see where the red dot is there. And I know that, so I keep that in mind when I'm doing things. Remesh one more time. Since the voxel size is the same, I don't think I'm adding to the complexity of the mesh. I think it's just relaying it out, trying to optimize it. Awesome. Kind of gives it a weird, almost more natural look, which is odd to say, but a more consistent look. Awesome. And then one of the things that I like to add is some veins, and I do that by turning off all mirroring. Bring my radius down to a really small size, and then do it with adding the layers. So let's see, we can bring a vein down like that, and then have it go over here. But actually, I think that those are too large still. Let's crank that down a little bit. So let's bring it up from here. The vein basically traveling like that. Come along here. And then we'll add one here. Kind of traveling along the leg there. Maybe come up here into this. Now we add a short one here. Maybe one that just kind of flows off like that, right? Okay. And I know what you're saying, that doesn't look like veins, but that's why we got this tool. Come along and smooth that out. Just kind of tapping the key, tapping the mouse, getting it, smoothing them in, make them look kind of more part of the design, or part of the actual, you know. That one looks really weird. No big deal. Like, if we don't like it, we can come in, take our radius down again. Let's do 15. Maybe we need to add a little more 3D to it, or maybe it needs to come up a little more. Come back here. By the way, I'm right clicking to bring up the menu. Yeah, there you go. That looks a little more organic, I should say. Not. I think we should do the same thing with this one here. I think we use 20 on that other one. Maybe it was 8. Was it smaller? Must have been smaller. Let's try 15. And again, we can just kind of change things up as we want, right? As we find that they're working for us, we can adapt and make things work. I'm really liking the way that extra stroke helped, so I'm gonna come along and do some more of that. I feel like it changed dramatically the feel of what I was getting there, and I like it more. And I think that will help us. Cool. Do the same thing here, since I've kind of done that everywhere else. And again, this is a very artistic process, right? Not saying you have to be some kind of great artist or painter or anything like that, but this is art. This is creation, right? This is your vision being processed into life, and becoming alive, right? And that is why I enjoy this toy making as much as I do, is because I see it that way. I mean, that looks like a defect, but I kind of actually like it, the way that it's kind of got some real personality there. So I'm going to leave it. Cool. A little more veiny than I would have probably liked, but I think it works. Scrape this off, because I really don't like this. Let's see what we can do here to clean that out. Get rid of that. Come back, smooth it down, so it should pretty much just disappear. Cool. Okay. I'm liking the way that looks. I'm going to do this. You know, this is what I said. Actually, I do a save as. You can save a copy, but I like to progressively work on that. So by doing this, I'm moving forward. By doing, by saving it as a V2, I'm moving forward. Yeah, and then I think it's always interesting to add a little bit of kind of, I don't know, I'm going to say, for lack of a better word, kind of like design or realism to the idea that this is a individual. It's not just a flaccid design, right? So by giving it like some of these marks up in here, I feel like it kind of makes it almost like, you know, it's especially with the name of this one being, like I said, like the Warlord. It's like he's used it and it's been rough and he's had some scrapes and stuff like that, right? So cool. Okay. Yeah, and so that's pretty much designed for you. Let's see here what we can do. I was going to say, trying to think of other things you can do, you know. It's not a big incremental change from the last one. If you were thinking like, oh, I want a knot, right? So you can come in here and do an XY mirror. And I don't think I want a knot on this design, but if I did, you come in, say I want an XY mirror, inflate, high strength, medium radius, and you can come in here now I kind of have not kind of, I absolutely have a knotted toy. I've got a defect I don't like here, but that's okay. Let's see what we can figure out. And then again, a defect is something I don't like. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means it's not the design that I wanted. Ooh, look at that. All that mesh got messed up. Let's see what we can do. Or all that design got messed up. I don't know if that's a mesh problem, but it is something that I do not like. So little creases are not a problem, but big creases can be. And That is really weird that that's only present on one side, but that must be because of the veins. Not that this needs to be perfectly smooth, but again, like, it's not the design that I would have made, right? And in actuality, you know, looking at it now, I probably would have been better off adding the knot before I added the veins. It would have, because you can see, like, the urethra here got deformed and everything like that. So if I decided that was something I wanted, I'd be good. Given that I don't want to, let's go back here. I do not want that knot. I do not like what it adds. It does not feel like it's what this design is telling me. So, awesome. So we've got that. We save it. We're good to go. Last thing we do is export it. Or not last thing, but we'll export it as an STL. I am currently running my Prusa Mini, so if I wanted to do this in any kind of scale, I'd have to use one of the other, my Prusa MK3, or even possibly get the Creality, I don't know, what is it, Pro 2 up, so I can do like a 16 or something inch model. But again, I'm not big on those large sizes, so then we'll go to, I use Prusa Slicer. This is the first time I've, yeah, that works. File, open project. Oh, I don't want to save that, sorry. File, open project. No, do not save. Go to desktop. Where the heck did I save that? Uh-oh. Did it not export? Nope, there it is. It's in my home directory. Let's go put it here. And actually I'm going to label it with my WI. The WI is just so that I can find things easily. Cool. We go back to Prusa Slicer. File. Okay. File, import. I think that one's in imperial units. Let's see here. Woo! Nope, that was the wrong one, but no big deal. Actually, let's try this. Delete that. And again, like, no big deals here. We're just working along. Import. Cool. That's good. Just because I find it easier being an American, working 7 inches, so 177 millimeters approximately. I'm going to slice, as I said, the base off about there. I do not wish to keep the lower part. Form the cut. Woo! That is a complex model. Bring this back. I can print up to 7 inches, so there we go. for the initial print, I just print these in PLA. I'll do a draft speed or a draft quality. Again, I'm going to print this out, look at what it said, what it looks like, and go from there, right? So I'm trying to decide if I need to adapt any changes, and the only way for me to really see that is to print out the toy and get a feel as to what it looks like in my hand and feels like as you look at the object, right? I am not great at visualizing this in the real world. About 80% of the designs that I do like this get thrown out, but yeah, and then I always cut down the infill down to 5% because for this one I don't care about strength, I don't care about anything. I just want a fast print to get it in my hand, fast prototype, so that I know what I'm looking at. And so in 4 hours I can print that up and have it in my hand and get a feel for it. If I like it, then I will proceed in a different way. I'll come back, crank this thing to a 10 millimeter detail. I actually print my stuff in ASA for final prints, and then decide exactly what the scale is. Since I'm on the mini, the 7 inches is the largest I can go. Not a problem for me for most things, but if I need, I can switch off to another printer. We can get that as large as we want with the printer. With the printer we have, I have one that will print up to 18 inches tall. So anything bigger than 18 inches is going to be expensive, even at 18 inches, right? So once this prints, you take it off the bed. If you like it, you create a mold. There's lots of good videos on how to do molds and stuff like that. But that's one way that I do it. It works for me. Let's just kind of show you the difference between the 10 and the 13 hours versus 4 hours at the 10 scale for a 7-inch with this volume, right? I mean, obviously everything depends on how much of the bed you use, but yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate your time, and I hope this was useful.